All right, welcome to tonight's chat about the chapter review, number 12. Tonight's question comes from Faith. She's asking about number 17. 17 reads, use the pedigree below to answer the questions. You can see I've got the pedigree laid out here. List the names of the people with the trait. Well, as you can see on the chart, the people who have the trait, like we said, are the people that are green. So you can see that Jan and Mike each have the trait because they are both filled in. Letter B asks, is this a recessive or dominant trait? Is it sex-linked? And please explain. Well, by looking at the chart, if it were a dominant trait, we would notice this trait showing up in the older generations up here near the top. But since it hasn't showed up until you get down here into the second and third generations, this must be a recessive trait. Regarding whether it's a sex-linked trait, well, if it was sex-linked, we notice it's showing up more often in males than in females. But you can see Mike down here is the male that has a trait. And over here we have a female that also has a trait, so it is not a sex-linked trait. Letter C asks, list the names of any carriers of the trait. Well, by looking at this chart, we can probably assume that Sue and Bob both carry the trait, since they have an offspring, Jan, who has the trait. And we can also assume that Dave and Liz each carry the trait, since their child, Mike, also has the trait. And the last question there, if Jan married a man who was heterozygous for the trait, what is the probability that any one of their children would have the trait? Well, if we find Jan here, Jan who carries the trait, if she marries a man who is heterozygous for the trait, with a simple Punnett square, you can find that there's a 50% chance that their child will have the trait. Since Jan, we know, has the two recessive genes, and Jan's spouse, if he's heterozygous, has one of each, 50%. Any other questions, let me know. Thanks.